You are now tuned into the one and only Revolution on a Recliner.
The liberty is very, very bad. The liberty is very bad nowadays. I want to know if I gaze or not gaze or not what money is. This is that minus plus, neither fraction. It's when 9 man gone in a action.
Welcome to Revolution on a Recliner. I'm John Conrad. Joining me today is the Spitfire, Take No Prisoners, conservatarian woman of your dreams, the amazing and beautiful Wendy Bellevue. How's it going, Wendy?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Okay. So, Wendy, today we're going to be joined by a very special guest. Robby Starbuck is a producer and director of music videos and short films. He's produced a lot of big names, including the official videos for one of the Terminator movies and one of the Transformer movies. I first saw Robby during the Bexit event, the one hosted by Turning Point USA and Candace Owens. And he was on he was on like a Latino panel, and I was really impressed with what he had to say, how knowledgeable he was, how passionate he was. And I'd say it was honestly one of the highlights of the program. So without further ado, let's welcome Robby Starbuck to the program. Thanks for joining us, Robby.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Now, Robby, let me start with this. How did you come to participate in the Bexit event? Like, how did that even happen? And why did you decide to do it?
Well, actually, I had kind of been on when Candace first came out, and was starting to get a little bit of a following. I mean, it was like right at the very beginning. I saw one of her very first videos somebody sent to me, and I totally fell in love with her. I was like, this girl is amazing. Yes. She is going to change so many hearts and minds. Love it. So I decided to reach out to her and just tell her, hey, if there's anything I can do to help, anything at all, let me know. And we started a dialogue there, and we've had a great back and forth to work together to do what we can to improve this movement, to be able to be inclusive of everybody and also message people the way that they need to be messaged so that they are being spoken to about the issues that matter to them. Because that's one of the faults we've had in the past is we have not messaged effectively to certain communities, telling them, how is this going to help your daily life? Instead, we've sort of gone on these very broad terms that don't affect everybody. Like you can't go into some of these communities and talk about the stock market. They don't care. They don't have any stocks. So it's about all those things. And when Lexi was coming around, her and I had already been talking, and she said, hey, we're doing this panel. And I would love to have you on. And I didn't even think about it. I said yes before she finished asking me. So.
No, she truly is awesome. And I agree with you that our biggest problem as libertarians / conservatives, whatever you want to call us, is that not only do we not reach out often enough to the minority community, but when we do, it's just the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But it's harder I think it's harder only because people are afraid to even try, or they think they may get rejected by the African-American community, for example. Like I could use my community as an example for this. A lot of people think that they kind of have that perception that all Black people they're liberals and they're happy being liberals and that's it. You know what I mean? Yeah. When in reality, the Black community, like especially like people who are who have old school parents, and they're very conservative, and they absolutely vibe with this message. Right now, the liberals feel like they have or like the Democrats, I would say, feel like they have a strong hold on them. So other people don't even try getting into the water or talking to us.
That distinction between liberal and Democrat, because there is a difference. I don't have any issue with liberals. In fact, I would consider myself somewhat liberal as a human being, but the Democratic Party is not liberal anymore. The Democratic Party today would destroy John F. Kennedy. They would destroy any real pillars of liberalism, especially when it comes to free speech and things like that. They don't stand for those values anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
But in those communities, to your point, where you were saying, you know, they are much more conservative than people, you know, on the left would have you think. They really, and same thing in the Hispanic community. We have the most overwhelmingly conservative people when it comes to abortion and a bunch of different issues, and yet they're voting for Democrats. So a big part of that is A, we're not messaging, and B, the media. The media has had such an effect on all of these communities for so long, and we're breaking the paradigm for the first time ever, where we're saying, look, this is the hoax that's been perpetrated on all of us. I'm not immune to it, and most people I meet are not immune to it. When I was young, I believed what I saw on CNN. I believed that you could watch CNN and trust them to communicate the news to you, and that it was to you in an unbiased way. And I think everybody at this point, I mean, everybody on the right at least, and people in the middle, a lot of them, and some of the people on the left are coming to realize that it was all a hoax that was perpetrated upon us. And if anything, they don't feel stupid so much as they feel betrayed. You know, betrayed by the people they trusted to give them, you know, unbiased information. It's almost like finding out, you know, 30 years later that your parents are not really your parents, you know, like
cognitive dissonance or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
Every belief you had up until that point, it makes you question do you really hold that belief? What is it?
Exactly.
What is the basis of it? So it's an interesting time because we have the opportunity to help lead people in a positive direction by just saying, hey, we were all duped. You know, let's look at issues one by one. You care about, what are the top 5 things you care about? And then communicate to those people on those top 5 issues. This is what we've done. This is what we will do. This is what we believe. Here's the 5 lies you may have heard about us.
Right. And I like that. I like that tactic of we have been duped. I like that. That's a good way of building a bridge and saying, like, because right now it seems to be like left or the right, and we owning the libs and all that stuff, and as fun as that is.
It's fun. There's a time where, like, hey, do we want to win, you know, for the next 20 years? I do. I want to win for the next 200 years. So if we want to just constantly win and be able to, you know, make our country stronger, we do need to find a way to reach out. That doesn't mean you can't own the libs, though. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. You know, when Avenatti got arrested, I mean, like, I'm up there with everybody. I'm excited about it, you know. So, but there's that. You have to make a distinction between the people who are voting and the elite people in power, because the elite people in power, I always want to beat up on them. The people who are voting,
that's true.
I generally have a lot of room for, you know, nuance there and finding common ground, because that's this healthy. I want to get to a place where, even if we disagree, you don't want to kill somebody because they have a MAGA hat on, and on the flip side, somebody on the right doesn't automatically think that you're, you know, a crazy person that wants a safe space. You know, like, there has to be that bridge for everybody.
I like that. That's true. I'm sorry. That I completely agree. Once we figure out that part, I feel like once we figure out how to, because just thinking about going to a rally where there'll be Antifa people or Black Lives Matter people, speaking as somebody who was trampled by them, because we had a free speech rally in Boston, and they came out in droves and manufactured this like ridiculous fight and I was in the middle, like filming everything.
I saw the video. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I used a lot of
Are you
words,
sure you didn't actually instigate that, Wendy?
I was almost, maybe. I don't know.
The jury's out on that one.
I know, right? Oh my gosh. But like it's when you're in that moment, like you can easily see how it's like gasoline is like doused everywhere. It's just waiting for that one match. And it's contagious, because even me, like I lost myself in that video. Like I was going off on
it. Happens on both sides. I agree.
And it's so there's if we start doing more and more things where we can have like what we're doing now, or like your video, I saw that you did a video about like over-sexualization of kids, which we have to talk about, by the way, because every time you guys were like a whole 18 minutes, I was like, yes, preach. Yeah. So, but things like
Yeah,
that, like in fact,
my wife do a bunch of videos like that. So, I mean, I don't know if you saw, we did a Periscope that was like a longer one. I think it was like almost an hour talking about why we're leaving California. And yeah, we bought. So I'm keeping part of my company here, but we're moving to like 20 minutes or so outside of Nashville. We bought a farm, and I'm going to be opening a second hub to our production company there that can service DC and New York and Nashville. But the reasons why, I mean, the list is incredible, but it goes to a lot of that same point. And on this journey, changing our life there, we have 3 kids. We're going to do constant videos of the process of leaving a liberal state and why we're leaving and like what the experiences have been, because I
love that.
Wow, that was going to be one of my questions. Have you ever considered doing some sort of documentary? Because we really need more people like you that have the skill and talents that you have, and creating documentaries that are more conservatarian, so to speak, based.
Yeah, so there's a number of things that I'm doing. You know, I mean, our workload's crazy right now, but I have some projects underway. One is I'm working on commercials for 2020, and
oh my gosh,
that's epic.
I'm sorry.
You may have seen Donald Trump Jr. retweeted a post where I was asking people to email their stories to an email address. He put that out there for me.
Wow.
All those stories that are going there. I'm getting the most diverse coalition of representation for the Republican Party, and just anybody who's MAGA, who wants to make America great, wants to keep America great, they're invited to this. And I want to, you know, film these beautiful stories of why they feel that way. What are your issues? Why did you vote this way? And show the real faces behind the vote, you know, and the real stories behind the vote, so that people on the left or people who are center left can see that, look, at the very least, even if you can't get there, this is the person you're calling a racist. You're calling this Indian shop owner a racist. You're calling this lesbian African-American first Navy officer a racist. You know?
Yes.
You know,
and I think one of the common themes you'll hear amongst a lot of these types of people that are walking away, so to speak, is that they finally come to the realization that the people that tell you what you want to hear, what makes you feel good, are not always your friend.
Yeah, well, it doesn't take long to figure out that it's not true. You know, it's sort of like there's that old idea about, you know, 2 kids running for student council president. One of them promises free candy, free drinks. The other one doesn't. And the kid with the free candy, free drinks wins. Eventually, they can't fulfill on that promise, and that becomes very clear. That's the same thing that happens with Democrats. You know, they'll promise you the world. And, you know, I think one thing that we all have to remember, and why I try to keep a level head when it comes to knowing people vote a certain way that I don't agree with, you know, like say the young people now, they're like, you know, they're super for, you know, taking guns away. They're super for the Green New Deal, all that. You have to remember what we all felt like at that age, at least for me.
I was even worse.
The nice words sound fantastic. The ideas, like, let's go through them. This is all linguistics, and it's very clever. You go through the words like tolerance, inclusiveness, you know, safety, and our planet. You know, when you talk about our planet being a safe place, and on the flip side, you have people that you're supposed to respect that are on the shows that you've been told are cool, telling you your planet is going to be destroyed in 12 years. Right? I mean, hell yeah, I'd be out there too protesting if I didn't know the facts.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
These kids, they just don't know yet, but we have to sort of like make sure we're not putting up walls that are so high.
Yeah, Wendy.
It's impossible for them to ever get over them. You know, unless they're in Mexico.
Do me a favor. Don't ever look at Wendy's Twitter profile, okay?
Oh my God, I'm savage. I know.
I'm all for the wall in Mexico, though. I mean, don't get me wrong. Just ideological walls here in the United States. You know, like we want to make sure that space is there, that there's a big, beautiful door there for these people to walk through when they're of age and they've figured out how taxes work and they figured out how the environment works. That we are on the other side able to go, hey, we get it. We were all young too once. The nice words sound great, but it's all, you know, it's all a scam.
Sure.
Well, and if you think about it too, like I heard some kid. Oh, sorry to interrupt, John. Do you want to say something? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're good.
Like touching on what you've been saying, some kids haven't even, like, I was working when I was 15 years old. Some people now, like, they went to high school, their parents are protecting them their entire lives. They go from high school, staying inside, playing video games, and then jump straight to college where it's like instant adulthood. You can do whatever you want, but you're protected in safe space land. And then it's like, what, like, to look for a job, it's like people quit jobs because it's like, well, he looked at me funny. Like, right, okay. Like Larry Elder's dad. Yeah, Larry Elder. I don't know if you guys ever heard of him, a black conservative. His dad worked at
Larry Elder. That's my God.
He was. I was going to correct you, and you said that it was one of the highlights of Bexit. Larry Elder's story about his dad.
Right. That always gets
that was the highlight for me. I love him.
I cry every time I hear that.
I cry every time I hear
that.
It too,
that
you guys.
and Finding Nemo.
Yeah. Well, true. But like, if you think about it nowadays, like that man, his father, a man, the same man that we're supposed to be hating, man and masculinity, that man worked as a janitor in how many decades, like, and they wouldn't even give him a job, and he was kicked out of his house during like Jim Crow era, like at 13 years old, like real hardship, and you're mad right now because someone's wearing a hat. No, what I
go back to is like any of these kids who have that state of mind, I try to be very calm with them and just explain to them where I'm coming from and say, you may have trouble understanding why I'm here, why I believe the things I believe, but let me tell you about my life. My life is that my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my mom, they lived in Cuba when Castro came to power. They worked their whole lives to have a sugar farm. They worked it themselves. They didn't have any slaves. They didn't have nothing like that. They're a mixed race family. And when Castro came to power, everything was stolen from them. Absolutely everything. Down to the things inside their house, they were literally told that they were allowed to take one thing and go to the airport. And that was the deal that my family made to be able to live, was they gave up everything. And they got on a plane. They got a plane ticket in return to the United States. They had nowhere to go. They had no jobs. They didn't speak English. And when they got here, the very first thing that my family did was learn English. My great-grandpa, who had already worked his whole life at that point, got a job as a janitor, and then a second job as a janitor at night at another place. And they worked their butts off. They learned English, and they fell in love with the freedom in the United States. And until the day he died, would have done anything for this country, because he felt like this country didn't just save our family's lives, it gave our family something it never had before.
Right. Right.
Can I add something to that? And I know this is completely anecdotal because it's just my personal experience, but I tell you, I've known many Latin people in my life. I was very submersed within the immigrant community for decades. But that's another conversation. But the most like MAGA type people who are anti-communism, anti-socialism, of any type of Latino people that I've ever met were from two countries, from Venezuela and Cuba, because they lived it.
Yep.
Cubans are by far the most Republican of all Hispanic people. It's not even close. It's incredible how many Cubans are Republican. I mean, without Cubans, Trump
makes sense.
If they had just voted like every other Hispanic bloc, Trump would have lost Florida. But they don't. They delivered the state in 2016. They delivered it in 2018, and they'll do it again in 2020.
Oh, God bless them. And thank you for that. Thank you so much, anybody who voted for Donald Trump. I did not vote for Donald Trump because I'm not going to lie. And I always was a fan, like even his TV. I liked him a lot. I still like him. Yeah. Didn't vote for him because I was scared as hell. I damn sure didn't vote for Hillary. I voted like libertarian. I was like, God, it's up to you. Yeah. When Trump came out and started doing the amazing things he did, I'm like, thank God. I cowered out. Thank God for the people who didn't do that and took a chance. Thank you so much. God knows what we would have been.
You're not the only person like that. In the Hispanic community, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I want to say he received, do you guys know, I think he received 21% of the vote in the Hispanic community. It might have been it's either 16 or 21.
I don't know. I can look it up.
I'm not sure.
But since the election, his rating went from the low 20s to the start of 2019 in February. It was at 52% approval rating in the Hispanic community.
Wow.
It's the largest rise in his approval rating of all races, and he actually has a higher approval rating amongst Hispanics than he does white people.
Well, yeah, because the white people are too busy being social justice warriors.
So this is what's incredible is that polling number came on the heels of about 3 weeks of talk about border, immigration.
Wow.
Hispanic people want our country's immigration laws respected. The majority of them, at least. You know, there's a certain segment that don't, that they want open borders, but the majority of them, they want a wall. They want an immigration system that works. Here's the thing that a lot of people don't understand, is that a wall isn't just like, it's not just this thing that's like, oh, I want to keep everybody out. It's not about just, you know, keeping everybody out. It's about resources. How many resources do we expend on the border every single day? It's incredible, the number of resources we use. What can we do with those resources once we have a gigantic wall that's outfitted with drone detection technology on top and tunnel detection technology on the bottom? We can cut the resources we actually use at the border in terms of manpower, because we'll now have an alert and threat system that's able to identify threats instantaneously and be able to deploy people to an exact location for an exact threat. So because of that, we can change our resources to be able to speed up the legal immigration system, speed up our ability to look into people's, vetting people, you know, looking into their past and making sure we want them here. You know, so it's a two-pronged thing. One comes with the other. So if you want the legal immigration system to improve, you have to relieve some of the pressure that's on the illegal side of things, you know. So I think that that's what boosts the numbers.
Yeah,
and I think key to that would also be allowing more people into work, but like you said, legally, in a legal way.
Yeah.
I think that would be, because I'm definitely very, very pro-immigration. I want to switch gears for a second. Now we have breaking news, and I'm sure both of you have heard of this already, but for those who haven't, Jussie Smullett today got cleared of all 16 felony charges.
You bleep bad words on here?
You can say as many bad words as you want, because I'm usually the only one doing it.
I never cuss. I really don't. I never cuss.
I do. I'm from Jersey.
Absolute bullshit to the 10th power, to the highest degree, the biggest bag of bullshit that I've seen sold to the American people. I mean, honestly, it's worse than an Obama speech, because at least an Obama speech sounded pretty, you know, like at least I could be like, hey, his voice sounds nice while he's lying to me. This, I mean, he was. I mean, he was a
great speaker.
I'm not going to take that away from him. He was a hell of a speaker. I'm honest. You know, that's the thing. People can expect it. I'm going to tell them the truth one way or the other. I mean, like, he did have a gift with that, but he was also he was a liar. So, in terms of Jussie Smollett, though, I mean, you can't get more guilty than he is. This is like as guilty as you can get.
Thank you.
The corruption within that Cook County Office of Prosecutors is insane. The thing that got me is when you're so corrupt that the mayor of Chicago comes out and says, hey, you know, there might be a problem here. This looks a little funny. You have a problem because there is nobody more corrupt than the mayors of Chicago. Okay? So the fact that we got Rahm Emanuel out of his little hole to say, hey, you know, this looks a little fishy. He said this isn't on the up and up. You know, there may be political bias at play here. It doesn't get more biased. But the good news, I have good news, because I've spoken to reporters in Chicago. Yes, I've spoken to reporters in Chicago today, and who've been in contact with police sources and FBI sources. There is a high probability that there are going to be federal charges coming for Jussie Smollett.
Oh, okay.
So the state charges, you know, this was a sham, but that can all be rectified by federal charges for the fake letter that was mailed. You guys know about the letter, right?
Oh, that's right, because it was mailed. Oh, federal. Oh, keep going, Tony. Keep going.
It had fake powder in it. So that letter and some of the other actions taken could become federal problems. And there is there's an open FBI investigation into Jussie Smollett.
Oh, I did not know this. I thought he was dropped of all charges and that's it. He walks away. I didn't know that.
So he walks away from these state charges, which in itself, now the Chicago Police Department is asking for an investigation of Kim Foxx's office because
Thank you.
So the Chicago police came out hard today. I love Eddie Johnson. I feel like he's trying to make his city great. And so I hope to see Eddie Johnson is totally separate, the police superintendent there. I hope to see him at the White House soon, and I hope to see him work with the administration to do something transformational for the city of Chicago.
Yes.
Yes.
The good people there outnumber the bad people, and the good people deserve a safe place to live. The children there deserve a safe place to live. So totally separate point. But in terms of Jussie, that's what I think we're going to see is federal charges at some point. And he's going to put on quite a show. I mean, because this is just going to be a part of their defense is that, look, I claim no guilt here and I had the charges dropped, and they're going to make the biggest media show they can out of it to try to sell this as a political prosecution, but it's not. The funny part of this is the day before today, Smollett's lawyer, Mark Garagos, he was a co-conspirator in Michael Avenatti's indictment in New York for extorting.
Look how this is so incestuous. Look how intertwined. Like,
it's very incestual the way these lawyers and the anti-Trump people are. All of these anti-Trump people, they seem to all be connected to each other. So Smollett's lawyer, Mark Garagos, who's also a CNN legal analyst, by the way, and CNN disavowed him yesterday and said he no longer works for us. He was named a co-conspirator in the extortion of Nike with Avenatti. They were trying to extort $20 million. In exchange for keeping a story quiet.
And look at what happened with where he had the connection with Cory Booker and what's her name, Kamala Harris, and then just after this story broke, they passed that no lynching law or whatever it was. You know, maybe that was a coincidence, but it sounds a little fishy.
I honestly don't think it's connected. I think that, I'll say this. This is a rarity because you won't find me defending Kamala Harris or Cory Booker very often. But I will say this. The lynching law, is it useful? Probably not. But I don't think that there's any issue doing it. Why not?
It just seems like something that they could run on as a campaign. Like, look what I did.
Exactly. That's what it was for. Because
we need to take that from them. We need to take those things from them and say, hey, you know what? We're doing these bills, which is what we did on prison reform. We took that issue. We took it on CBD.
And that was amazing.
Next, we need to take marijuana. We need to take marijuana tomorrow because it is going to be legalized whether people that are Republican like it or not. It's a matter of what the date will be and whether it'll be a states' rights issue. So why don't you go ahead, take the power now, make it a states' rights issue. Say federally, this is legal. This is up to the states, and let the courts deal with it from there, because that's all you need for Trump to be going to 2020 saying, I legalized weed. I'm the president that legalized weed. And
federally.
That's a wrap. You could not show up at honestly, he could probably show up at one of the debates with a blunt, and that would be it. It's legal. No, but seriously, it would be that deal. People don't realize how many voters are serious about that issue. And I've railed on it, and people are like, you must smoke marijuana. I don't even smoke marijuana. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I've did a Snoop Dogg video, so I've smoked plenty of it, but I don't. But I seriously don't. I don't have a personal use for it, but I know so many people that have used it, and I've seen so many people on alcohol, and alcohol, in my mind, is entirely more dangerous. So, you look at these things, it's an election issue. Take the issue. We did it on maternal death rate. So I'm sure you know, Wendy, maternal death rate among African-American women much higher than anybody else. Republicans took that issue, and now we need to meet the messaging for it, because we passed a bill, the Maternal Health Act, and it was for, making people aware of the issue, but also for funding studies to fix the issue. And these are issues we need to get out there and message about so we can go into the communities that care the most about this, are affected the most by it, and tell them, look, it wasn't a Democrat that did this bill. It was Republicans. It was Republicans that wrote it, proposed it, and passed it.
Yes.
Well,
I mean, the libertarian faction, which was always a tiny little faction, but the libertarian faction of the Republican Party were at the head of this whole criminal reform, criminal system reform, and legalizing marijuana and whatnot. But they were never taken seriously. And I agree with you that there was a vote, I think it was on Monday here in Jersey, and they vetoed, or they didn't pass, the legalization of marijuana for recreational use. I think that was a mistake, and this is a highly Democrat state. Okay. And they didn't pass it. So imagine if Republicans take that charge, because for me, it's a matter of liberty. I don't use marijuana. Okay. But for me, it's a matter of liberty. And we should, this is a way to connect to people, especially, forget about the marijuana. I don't want to frame that as a way to connect to the Black community, but the criminal reform could be, okay? Because let's be honest, it's a problem in the Black community. So, and it's connected to the drug war.
The reason marijuana is a Black and Hispanic issue, though, is, it's not about tropes. It's not about the idea they use it more than anybody. It's not about that. It's the fact they're incarcerated more.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was trying to say.
Use marijuana, I think, almost the same rate as Black. It's like within 1% or 2%.
I believe it.
Black Americans, but Black Americans are incarcerated far more than white Americans for marijuana.
I believe that.
So that's why I believe it is an issue, and we have to, not dance around the facts here. Like if maybe on CNN it would sound like, oh, that's not nice to say that, but it's reality. They're jailed more often, and if you go into those communities and you ask them, do you feel like it's fair that you go to jail more often than a white person in a rich area for marijuana? They're all going to say, hell no, it's not fair. So it does matter in those communities.
I agree.
Yeah,
1,000%.
That's
1,000%. And let me switch gears real quick again. Do you have any comments on the Russian collusion scandal?
Comments on the greatest hoax in American history? No, not really.
It is what it is, right? What can you say about it?
Hoax perpetrated on the American people in modern times. It's shameful, it's embarrassing, and every elected Democrat deserves to be dragged out kicking and screaming to have to answer for what they said in the past. Every single one of them said some crazy stuff in the past. They all need to get brought out by the media, and for the people watching, I don't mean literally dragging them. I mean, the media needs to be relentless going after them, to ask the questions and to hold them accountable for the words they used. They accused the president, his family, and his campaign of treason.
Look what they did to General Flynn.
Punishable by death. These people accused his children of treason, him of treason. It's insane. It's the most ludicrous, insane thing I've ever heard. And seeing these people react by being upset and having tantrums over finding out their president is not beholden to a foreign nation. Crazy.
It's shocking.
But it says a lot.
It does.
It says who we're up against.
It does.
It says a lot, not just about what we're up against, but it says a lot, not even just about the divisiveness, but it says a lot about the differences between us. There is there's no longer this little divide about tax rates and stuff. I mean, the right and left have never been further apart.
Yeah.
To your point about what you said about libertarians, they used to be this small faction, not taken very seriously. That's true. But what's the beauty of Trumpism and MAGA is that it's issues based. There's not really like a solid coalition, and these issues now are not seen as these, splinter cell issues. These are real issues that across a plurality of people are cared about. So a pragmatic president makes those a priority, and that's what he's been. He's been pragmatic. Yeah. Some of the issues he leads on have not been traditionally Republican issues, and others have. Like I agree with the way Trump has gone after the courts and the way McConnell's gone after the courts, but I also with a lot of the other things they've done, like prison reform, that were not traditionally Republican, you know, plans. Let's say.
Exactly.
There was just one crazy Republican that was basically ahead of the charge.
Yeah.
Him and Cory Booker, which was Rand Paul.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's the one that really. I feel like Rand Paul was Rand. Oh, not Rand. I think I'm Ron Paul. Never mind. Continue.
No, I love Rand. He's definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and it's interesting. I'll let you go for just 1 second. I'm gonna say it's interesting the counterculture I'm seeing that's happening. That's why I feel like I want to encourage a lot more people to get their voice out there, because the more voices and ideas, because we are in a battle of ideas right now. We're not in a civil war like we're fighting in the streets yet. Right now we're in an intellectual. I've used this before, but we're in an intellectual civil war. If we don't tackle it in an idea spiritual realm, it's gonna manifest. And something is gonna happen, and then like it's just gonna, it's gonna turn physical somehow. It's physically manifested. It needs to be attacked in the ideological spirit.
Which is why I came out when I did during the 2016 election and said what my beliefs were, because I felt like there's too many cowards out there. At the time during the 2016 election, have you guys heard of Friends of Abe?
No.
So there's a secret club in Hollywood of famous Republicans, and producers, directors, actors, musicians, and I'm talking like the A-listers and stuff in this group, okay? And during the 2016 election, some reporters found a list of Friends of Abe, and they went after each one of the publicists and all the people. Everybody denied their inclusion in this group. And the club was very, splintered in terms of support. Some wanted Ted Cruz, some wanted Trump, some wanted Kasich. And they actually, for the first time in decades, stopped meeting. And they haven't met since then. But the reality is, I saw so many of these people were choosing a cowardly sort of route where they cared more about, how they were perceived within Hollywood at parties versus their values. And I was like, I'm not going to be that person. Like, at the end of the day, in 50 years, these people in LA are not going to be the people taking care of me, loving me, every day. That's going to be my kids and my wife. I want to be the best version of me I can be and be true to myself and teach my kids that, against any odds, at any cost, you be yourself, and be true, to what you believe in.
Has you coming out and speaking your mind politically, has that affected your business in any way?
What do you think?
That right out of my head.
I would imagine, yes.
Big time. I mean, it's like, there's actually a question I've gotten a lot, which I'm sure you get. Like, I mean, it's an obvious question that everybody asks. And I've actually had trouble answering it because there's so many things that have happened that it's hard to even concisely put it together in a way that's like digestible really easily, because it's really messed up. Some of the, I mean, I've been on the receiving end of a lot of crazy hate. My agent, God bless her, she has gotten so many, and she's a Democrat, but she's like old school Democrat. She's gotten so many emails that are like, how dare you work with this guy? He's a racist. He's every phobic thing they could attach to me. And, they've done this to clients. They've done it all over the place. And then there's other clients who find out my political persuasion and they just straight up ghost us after like decades of, over a decade of working together. They completely ghost.
No.
These are people who like with Christmas parties and like had a regular gone. Is it because they're scared of the backlash, or because they really don't like what you're saying and they're like, no, I'm tuning you out? No, I would say there's no case that I can think of where it's about backlash, because like the amount of backlash that they would get is not, it's really not that big. It's not like I'm like super controversial. I'm not like I'm not standing for anything crazy, basically. It's not like I'm like somebody like Milo who has gotten a ton of, done controversial stuff and everything, then I understand a brand being kind of like, ooh, you know what, we'll stay away. I haven't said anything crazy, everything I say is either, backed up by facts. I make it very clear, or I make it very clear it's my opinion, and none of them are outlandish. It's not like it's like, some cuckoo thing that nobody's ever heard before. These are very mainstream views.
But it's guilt by
Common
association.
sense.
They
Yeah.
connect you with Candace Owens. They connect Candace Owens with Trump. That's it. Story over.
Oh no! When I went to the White House,
Oh my
like
goodness.
the worst. People were very angry about that. Very, very angry. About that. Like I even got a message from somebody that week where they took a screenshot of my Instagram, and it had a picture of me and Don Jr. at we were at Trump Hotel, I think, having dinner, and they took a screenshot of that and a screenshot of me in the White House with Evander Holyfield, and they said, "Looks like you changed careers, eh?" And they blocked my phone number.
Wow.
Wow.
They can't handle ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what do you guys think about this paradigm that we're in? Like, as in like a macro, you know when they say like the right side of history, looking like, I know we can't imagine what it's gonna be like in the future, but the fact that this counterculture is coming in and people are absolutely okay with saying, you know what, I'm gonna cut you off because I don't agree with what you're saying, and where do you think that's gonna what do you think that's gonna end up like years later?
Better
do you think,
or worse?
Like, do you think we're gonna end up making up our own industries, as we should, because we should be making up our own magazines, aren't gonna pump out sex and porn to our teenagers? We should be coming with our own, like, sorry, but like, do you think we're gonna actually get to that point where we end up making up our own
Hollywood,
not just Hollywood, just industry, just paradigm? Like, we're gonna let them keep whining and complaining and screaming about how they're not getting their way and how they're losing. I'm talking about like the extreme leftist, but like the moderates and those that are then like conservatives and so on. Are they gonna like start making up their own industries? That way we're not like, we don't have to hush. Like, oh my God,
we're gonna live in two parallel worlds in the same country.
Yeah, but next side by side. Like, how do you think that's gonna happen?
Number one, winners write history. So, like, as long as we keep winning, we will decide what that looks like, But secondarily, in terms of, the ecosystem in which all of this entertainment and media and culture exists, yes, we need to create our own separate ecosystem. So I think, I forgot to finish answering was about projects. Is, outside of that, the commercial that I was telling you guys about, we are working on more than one documentary. One, what I was kind of talking about with the Nashville thing is me and my wife are going to be making regular videos of like our whole family. Is sort of like, the idea is, I want to give people who are younger, who have all of these role models about like, doing all kinds of crazy, they have Kardashian role models. I want to give them a family that is fun, cool, creative. Their kids are happy. Like, we're young parents and like are living a different type of life, and explain it and talk about it. And it's not even coming from a religious place, which is what I think is missing, because there's plenty of religious people to look up to. Me and my wife believe in God, but we're not super religious, so we want to give young people, sort of an idea of like how you can live a whole, a values driven family life, be in love with somebody, all those things, and value your community, value animals, value friendship, value, all these things, and, how it all can work, so that's sort of separate from politics, but it's culturally driven, and then on the flip side, we have some very political documentaries that we're going after, and then there's a movie that we're developing too. So there are things that are in the political realm that, like, 2019, 2020 will be a priority.
Kind of in the same theme. You're talking about young people and morals and living a certain way, whatever. I wanted to touch on something real fast. I know you got to run, but I wanted to touch on something, a video that you and your wife posted that Wendy mentioned earlier. I know she's dying to get in on this. You posted a video on YouTube on your channel about Teen Vogue and the hyper-sexualization of teens, and them explaining to these kids like really adult themes and sexual positions and all kinds of crazy stuff. Can you comment on that a little bit?
I was shocked. I didn't know it was that bad. What happened? Like, what?
Well, anybody who's letting their kid read Teen Vogue at this point is like, they're not doing their job as a parent. So my wife, our oldest daughter is getting close to the teenage years. So my wife's kind of keeping tabs on everything that'll be coming up in the future. And that's sort of how we figured this stuff out and started researching it more. And I mean, go to Teen Vogue's website, open 5 articles, any 5 articles, and it'll blow your mind. Like the whole thing,
crazy.
The whole thing is a political activism unit now.
Sexually grooming, by the way, sexual grooming, like disgusting for a company.
Grooming, political grooming, and it's disgusting. I mean, like they give them. There's one article that's like abortion's no big deal. How to make your friend's abortion fun. You know
what?
Yeah. And it's about like going to your friend's house, bringing them candy and bringing them like, you know, little like gift bags and stuff, and like how to be a supportive friend when your friend has an abortion. And it's no big deal. And there's another one that's teaching them how to do anal.
Unbelievable.
For you know, like when I was a kid, like 12-year-old girls read Teen Vogue. Like my sisters, when they were very young, read this, you know.
But I doubt they were anything like this.
No, they were like, oh, 10 different ways to do your makeup, you know, do your eyeshadow.
Yes.
And, you know, like it was very calm stuff. This is crazy. And it goes into, you know, I think we touched on this in the video. They have a whole article about having regular sex. And they make it sound like
basic.
Like this. Yeah, basic.
Boring. Basic. Yeah.
Basic sex.
Yeah.
And it makes, you know, those younger people, I mean, we're not that old. Like, basic is not what any of us aspire to be. You know, if you're aspiring to be basic, well, that kind of sucks, you know? So if you read that, and I try to put myself in the mind of a 16-year-old boy or girl, and I'm reading about this, and I get told that normal sex is basic, I'm going to go, ooh, so we probably shouldn't try that. We should probably go for, like, the super good stuff, you know? Like, and that's what they're grooming, is they want to sort of push the boundaries of where people start so that where they end up is even further. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can't imagine why they would think that that would be a good thing. Like, I don't even, it's so bizarre.
It plays into all of their other ideas. If you make terrible decisions when you're a teenager about sex, then you're, you know, it's only a matter of time until STDs become a priority for you, how, you know, those things are treated, how abortion is treated. Those things will become a larger priority to you, and birth control become a larger priority to you. And general, just like, you know, moral equivalency to everything will become more normal for you. You know, so I think that's why it's an overarching theme. And then sexualizing kids in general, you know, is something that they seem to want to do because they want to make kids adults faster and faster. They want 16-year-olds to vote now.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
We have a rep here in California, State Rep Wiener, and he's trying to pass a law right now. This law is no joke. He's trying to pass a law that if a sexual predator is within 10 years of his victim's age, they do not have to register as a sex offender. So if a 25-year-old rapes a 15-year-old, they will not have to register as a sex offender.
What? No,
yes.
That's no. So, I hope they fight this. This is
it's the same guy who got a law passed last year that made it no longer a felony to knowingly transmit HIV.
Oh, that's right. Jerry Brown.
No, Jerry Brown's the governor that signed the bill, but the guy who actually wrote it is State Rep Wiener.
Oh my God.
Yes. Yeah, so
like that's. But and honestly, if anybody ran against him, they literally just put that on the billboard. I wrote this law that made like, are you kidding me? At some point, we have to come back to sanity. We're oversaturated by liberalism and liberal attitudes and liberal slut culture and all that stuff. Yeah. That's insane. And speaking out against it makes you crazy. People are like, "Are you okay?" Like she's like, they're posting things online that's like, what are you afraid of? Speak your mind, speak your values. What is happening?
Hey, Robby, since we're talking about this, you know, sexualizing teens and all that, and you're in the entertainment and production industry, I'm sorry to make this tabloidy. And if this is a stupid question, we can move along. But you always hear about like these child sex rings in Hollywood and these child sex parties. and all this kind of stuff. Is that just conspiracy, or have you ever heard or come across anything like that in the industry?
I can tell you right now, I can tell you one thing that's very real is Bryan Singer. You guys, have you heard of Bryan Singer?
Sounds familiar.
He directs X-Men movies. He has had parties for a very, very long time. He's had tons of victims come out and say they were raped when they were underage boys. And the reason he's been protected is because some of the most powerful people in Hollywood also went to these parties and did the same thing. And
so they're holding each other hostage.
You notice people like even Weinstein went down because Weinstein was all about himself, you know, and it was with adults. So he went down. Mm-hmm. But this guy, he's been having victims come out for a long time now. And it's a lot of victims. And they're all underage when it happened. And they're all boys. They were all passed around by famous people in Hollywood. And they've come out against some of the other ones. He's been protected individually because the people at the studios know they can't give this dude up. Because they know, he knows what they've all done. So if they get Bryan to give something up, he's going to give up everything.
Oh.
The whole ring when it comes to him, he's the one person that I'll call out and say 1,000%.
Oh, wow. So then what? So then how do we? So then what happens? How do we break? Like what? Like do like how? How do we break the dam? Like how do we?
I don't understand why the prosecutors in the state of California haven't gone after him. I really don't. I can't tell you.
Do they not have enough proof? Is that it?
And maybe a statute of limitations thing because these people have come out after their adults. But I don't know. I really don't know. It's something that I've wondered myself. Why isn't this? Because it's not just me saying this. Everybody in the industry knows this dude is bad news. They all know that this existed. They all know that, you know, there were other people involved. He is a monster, and he's fired off of Bohemian Rhapsody, that movie. He directed Bohemian Rhapsody, that new movie that won Oscars. Mm-hmm. He was fired towards the end of it because of his bizarre behavior. And he was hired to direct Red Sonja, and they recently got rid of that project. So there may be something happening now because he was fired off of that project. They said basically they're not doing it anymore, and nobody's touching him now. So there may be something about to change. I don't know, you know, but there's been some big stories on him in the last year with new victims. But I have no word for him except he's a monster. He deserves to rot in prison.
That is absolutely insane. And you know, when you hear this, and then you think about also what you said before with Teen Vogue, and then you think about that whole, what is that? Desmond is awesome kind of child.
Desmond is amazing. Yeah.
Desmond is amazing.
Dancing on stage while they throw dollar bills at
his mom blocked me when I called that story out. I put it there and I said, like, this is not okay. I have children. That children do not belong in a club having money thrown at them with their half-dressed. Like, this is not okay at all. This isn't a question of your son being uncomfortable with his identity or anything. It's not about that. You put all that stuff to the side. A child in a nightclub half-dressed with money thrown at them is wrong. I don't care if it's a girl or a boy. I don't care what the circumstances are. It's not okay.
You know what? Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, it's just, it feeds back into that sexualization of children, and it's not okay. And I was very it's not like I went off on this lady personally. I was trying to this kid, I said basically this kid needs to be protected by somebody.
Yes. Someone called child services on her.
Yeah, and the mom blocked me.
Yeah. Well, you know what it is too? They're doing like the drag queen story hour. Like what it is, I don't know if parents just think drag queens are they're grown. It's grown men in clothes. Like they think they're like caricature cartoons. Wait. Like, you know when you go.
You guys hear about Houston? What happened in Houston?
Yeah, the guy was a registered sex offender. They had him reading to kids in drag at the story time.
He was doing the drag story time, and it turned out he was a registered sex offender that had molested children before.
Like, shouldn't the Houston Library be held accountable and all those parents be held accountable for child endangerment? This is absolutely that's basic research you should be doing for your child.
Yeah.
And another and again, I don't know if parents just like, oh, drag queens are. Because don't get me wrong, I love a good drag show. I love a good drag show, and they're amazing and they're fun and they're lively. But parents seem to think of them as like those stuffed animals that you like, like those big live stuffed animals that you see at like Six Flags or Disney. They're just playing a character. Like, no, they're playing a sexualized character. And
that's the difference. Is
get your kid off her lap.
I don't care if adults want to do whatever, engage in whatever. It's none of my business. Whatever adults want to do consensually in their private time, I don't care. But it's this betrayal of reality. Because we all are aware that, all of this stuff, drag shows are inherently sexual. Like they're not just inherently sexual. I mean, they are. They just every part of its being is sexual. This isn't just some fun game. It's not like a game at the circus like this. They're not a clown. It's a very sexual deal.
That's what I think because the more elaborate their costumes and makeup get, they like especially like these like bourgeoisie, like middle class mommy and me or mama, like they just think like, oh, they're just cute little characters, and it's like, no, they're not like party clowns. They're not like, this is a grown man. Like, get your kid off this guy's lap. Like, what are you talking about, story? What are you saying? Like,
I'm sorry, guys. I gotta run. I have.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
I know you're on a tight schedule. I want to tell you that this was a truly awesome interview, and we can't thank you enough for coming on, Robby.
Thank you for coming.
Hopefully, we can get you on sometime soon in the future. Okay?
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
I'm officially a fan. I am finding you on all the social media. Oh, tell people where they can follow you before you go.
Yes, where can people follow you?
Yeah, you can follow me. I mean, on every social media, it's just at Robby Starbuck, ROBBYSTARBUCK. It's pretty simple. Everywhere, Robby Starbuck. Just don't spell Robby with an IE because that's not how you spell my name.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, thank you, Robby.
All right. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Take care.
Followed. Bye.
How awesome was that, huh?
You were right. He's really cool. I'm so proud of you.
Me?
Yes, look at you getting
you kidding me?
Stars. And he's amazingly talented too. He's amazingly talented. I'm gonna be like stalking him like crazy because I saw his videos and I'm like, whoa. And the people in the videos, like he's worked with like big. He's not gonna worry about going anywhere. He can make his own paradigm, his own industry himself. Like forget mainstream industry. Like he don't have to worry. He doesn't have to worry. The way his talent is.
Yeah, you can see he's a brilliant and resourceful young guy, so he's going to do well regardless.
Yeah, like amazing. I saw look at his director reel. Did you see that on his page?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I did. He even had a really cool, I don't know if you caught it, but he had a really cool short film that the band Smashing Pumpkins were a part of. I think it was technically a music video for Smashing Pumpkins, but it was more of a movie, so I'm not really sure. But it was really, it was a story where there was some like semi-professional that WWF wrestling stuff, and it was really funny and interesting, and at the end it was kind of sad, so I was impressed. The guy's a very talented guy.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a look at that. I'm looking at stuff right now. Yeah. I'm already.
Yeah.
So never mind.
All right, Wendy. So do you want to wrap this up?
Sure. I don't know how to wrap things up. No, you do it.
I got it. Well, I want to thank the beautiful and amazing Wendy for helping me out. This was an awesome show. Robby was awesome. Wendy was awesome, and this is definitely one that we will look back on in Revolution on a Recliner history and be proud.